There are deep divisions between the MAGA world and Britain over the meaning of free speech. And President Trump will be well aware Keir Starmer is now struggling in the polls and is under huge pressure politically. How much will all of that change the tone of the visit? And are there dangers ahead, perhaps, for the British side? Let's talk now to Mehdi Hasan, the British-born US-based commentator and founder of Zeteo Media. Mehdi, thanks indeed for talking to me again tonight. What is your view of Trump's view of Starmer?
I don't think Trump has a very strong view of Keir Starmer. I think Trump views people as instruments. Are they of benefit? Are they not of benefit? He switches on a dime. Look at Qatar. At one point, he thought Qatar was a terrorist nation. Now he loves Qatar and is saying, well, Israel shouldn't have attacked you. Emir's my friend. He will be happy with Starmer until he's not happy with Starmer. The same is true of every Western leader, every non-Western leader. Trump sees the world only through what is of benefit to him at any moment in time.
One of the big issues we haven't talked about on the show yet is, of course, Ukraine, where the idea of Trump imposing new sanctions on Russia if Russia didn't cease the attacks that are going on right now seems to be receding. He seems to be letting Putin off the hook again.
Yeah, the one person who Donald Trump never really wants to clash with is Vladimir Putin. Like, you can line up all of the world leaders over the past 9-10 years since Donald Trump emerged on the global stage as a politician, and there's only one person you can consistently find he will not criticize, will not condemn. Even Xi Jinping, even Kim Jong-un, who he loves and calls his friends, he's criticized them personally in the past, but not Putin. And of course, this is the man, Andrew, as we all know, who said he would solve the Ukraine war in 24 hours, he said. He didn't say it once, he said it multiple times. He's now been in office 8 months. We are no closer to a resolution in Ukraine. He's actually made it worse for the Ukrainians by berating their president in the Oval Office, by behaving like a mob boss. He treats NATO as, mob bosses would treat organizations, protection money. It'll be interesting to see if Starmer can stand up to you. You saw all the European leaders turn up in D.C. to try and form this coalition of the willing. Look, the mood in Washington, D.C., the mood on the right here is nothing for Ukraine. They have no interest in protecting Ukraine.
And Mehdi, you are a very well-known figure now on the left of American politics. How concerned are you about what President Trump has said in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination about the, quotes, terrorism, quotes, of Antifa and parts of the left in America? It does appear that something quite hardline is coming.
Andrew, after a national tragedy, after someone is murdered for their views, and we all condemn the killing of Charlie Kirk, whatever our views of him were, you expect a national leader to bring the country together, like a Barack Obama, like a Joe Biden, even George W. Bush, not a man I'm fond of, after 9/11. Bring the country together, unite, don't say more incendiary stuff, don't throw petrol on the fire. That is what Donald Trump has done for the past week. In fact, just before I came on air, Andrew, I saw him this morning talking to an Australian reporter who he told to be quiet, and then he told an American reporter at ABC News, we may investigate you. The DOJ may investigate your news organization because you say mean things about me. This is a government now that has used Charlie Kirk's death, Andrew, to really crack down on speech in this country. They were already doing it before, but this is the most anti-free speech, anti-press administration of my lifetime. So it is very worrying, and I hope British commentators and journalists bring this up while Donald Trump is in the UK, because don't forget, Andrew, you know better than me, everything that happens in the US happens in the UK not long afterwards. So the anti-speech movement here will migrate there too.
KT MacFarland, Deputy National Security Advisor in the first Trump administration and a regular Republican commentator in the US. KT, thank you very much indeed for joining me tonight. We've already heard from the President as he got onto Air Force One. He understands that we're going to be looking in Britain for refinements on the trade deals he's struck already. But what else do you think is foremost in his mind at the moment?
I think foremost is just a relationship building. This is a historic trip. President Trump is taking that very seriously. It's a historic trip in the sense that it's the only president in modern time, I think ever, to have two royal state visits with the United Kingdom. And obviously President Trump takes that personally. It means a lot to him as a person, but he also takes it as a great compliment to the country. His love of Great Britain is deep and significant. His mother was a Scot. He adored her. She taught him all of his hard work values. And so I think he looks upon this as, probably much more so and much more personally than any American president has done. And that's important to Donald Trump because he believes in personal diplomacy.
Talking of the personal, how upset, how disconcerted do you think he is by the sacking of Lord Mandelson as British ambassador to Washington?
I don't think it matters. The thing I've learned about President Trump is, and I've worked for 4 American presidents going back to Richard Nixon, most of the time when these official visits happen, it's after all the negotiating has been done at the staff level. And then by the time the leaders meet, well, they just put the sign for the pictures and it's all done. There's no real going back and forth. President Trump actually, as a businessman, does things in the opposite way. He believes that if he has that personal relationship, has that understanding with the foreign leaders, then he'll direct the staff to do the work. So I think that the situation where the timing maybe isn't terrific of the British ambassador leaving, it's not going to make a bit of difference to the negotiations.
I guess the reason I was asking is that it was said around the time of the actual resignation that because it was all because of Mandelson's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and President Trump has his own issues there, this might be regarded by the Trump White House as a kind of hostile act.
I don't think so at all. No, not absolutely not. I think the president is looking at this as a real opportunity to make further advancements on the U.S.-UK trade deal. It was the first one that we signed, that President Trump has signed, and he deliberately signed it with Great Britain. He wanted Britain to go first. And the fact that he's coming not just with his cabinet officers, but that he's coming with this leading technology giants from the United States, I think is a good sign that that's where they hope the relationship goes going forward, is that we can develop together. It'll help both of our economies, but particularly yours.
And finally, just on the mood of Team Trump, as it were, this comes after the awful shooting of Charlie Kirk, the murder of Charlie Kirk, who was very close to President Trump and to the MAGA movement generally. Trump has said some pretty aggressive things about the atmosphere of violence and hatred on the left of politics. Do you think this is going to be a kind of turning point culturally in the Trump administration?
I do think it's a turning point, not just in the Trump administration. Trump was the turning point, but I think it's a turning point in the United States. I mean, we've seen in the last 4 days, it wasn't just the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who was a friend of mine, but it was the reaction of the far left in the United States, of people literally dancing on the grave. And that, I think, has been a turning point in the country, particularly young people. 7 days ago, there were 3,000 chapters of Turning Point USA in American colleges and high schools. Now, 30 or 40,000 colleges and high schools have come forward saying, we want to do that too. We want to do what Charlie Kirk did. So I think that the turning point is not in Washington, it's around the country.